We planned the perfect surprise. The kids made her favorite cake. I booked the tickets. I imagined her running into our arms. But when we walked into that hotel lobby, she wasn't alone. And the way she looked at me, like she'd been caught between two lives, was the moment I realized, sometimes the real betrayal isn't cheating. It's feeling replaced before you even know why. The morning she left for her business trip felt ordinary. That's what unsettled me the most. She stood in the hallway adjusting the sleeve of her tailored charcoal blazer, her hair falling in soft waves over her shoulders. At 43, she carried herself with a quiet confidence that made rooms turn when she entered, not because she demanded attention, but because she never needed to. I leaned against the doorframe watching her. 3 days, she said, checking her watch. It'll go fast. Her voice was warm, steady. The same voice that used to whisper to me at night when she thought I was already asleep. I stepped closer and wrapped my arms around her waist. She fit against me the way she always had, familiar, grounding. Her perfume lingered between us, something floral with a hint of vanilla. I closed my eyes for a second longer than usual. She hugged me back. But it was lighter. Polite. Her palm rested against my chest, fingers spread, as if measuring the space between us instead of closing it. When she pulled away, she smiled, but her eyes were already somewhere else. Focused. Busy. The kids ran in to say goodbye, clinging to her legs. She laughed softly, kneeling to kiss their cheeks, promising souvenirs and bedtime video calls. Everything looked normal. It just didn't feel normal. After she left, the house felt too quiet. Not empty, just missing its center of gravity. I told myself I was being dramatic. She traveled for work sometimes. It wasn't new. But that night, when I texted her, "Did you land okay?" her reply came 40 minutes later. Yes. Long day already. No heart. No smiley face. No miss you. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. Maybe she was tired. The next evening, we video called. The kids talked over each other, showing her their drawings. She smiled, encouraged them, asked about homework. But when the camera shifted to me, something flickered in her expression. Not guilt. Not exactly. Just distance. You look tired, I said gently. She hesitated. It's just meetings. There was laughter in the background, muffled, male voices maybe. She adjusted the phone quickly, stepping into the hallway. Who's that? I asked, trying to keep my tone light. Just colleagues, she replied, a little too fast. We said goodnight. The call ended. The screen went dark. I lay in our bed later, staring at the ceiling. The mattress felt wider without her. Colder. I reached across to her pillow, pressing my palm into the fabric, still faintly carrying her scent. I wasn't the jealous type. But I was young. And she lived in a world of boardrooms and tailored suits and confident men who spoke her language fluently. Sometimes I still felt like I was learning it. I told myself I trusted her. I did trust her. So why did my chest feel tight? In the living room, her iPad lit up on the coffee table, a notification flashing briefly before fading into darkness. I didn't go look. I just stood there in the quiet house, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the soft breathing of our sleeping children, trying to convince myself that love didn't shift this easily. Trying to convince myself that the distance I felt was only miles. Not something deeper. The idea came from our youngest. Dad, she said, chin dusted in powdered sugar, what if we go see Mom instead of waiting? We were standing in the kitchen on the second night she was gone. The house felt less quiet with the kids around, but her absence still hummed in the walls, like a note slightly out of tune. Go see her. I repeated, pretending to consider it seriously. Yeah, our son added, eyes lighting up. Like a surprise. She always surprises us. I smiled, but something in my chest tightened. A surprise. The word felt hopeful. brave. Maybe that was what I needed, not another careful text message, not another polite video call. Maybe I needed to see her face when she wasn't expecting it. Maybe I needed to see whether that distance I felt was real, or just in my head. So we started planning. The kids insisted on baking her favorite lemon cake, the one she used to make on Sunday afternoons when music played softly in the background and she'd sway her hips a little while stirring batter. I could still picture her there, sleeves rolled up, a faint streak of flour across her cheek, laughing when I'd sneak up behind her and wrap my arms around her waist. Now it was my turn to stand at the counter. Flour dusted the cabinets. The mixer whirred too loudly. The kids argued about how much zest was too much zest. And for the first time in 2 days, the house felt warm again. I watched them carefully pipe frosting across the top, their small hands steady with concentration. They wanted it to be perfect. So did I. Later that night, after they were asleep, I sat at the dining table with my laptop open. Her hotel information was in my messages. 3 nights. 2 more left. I hovered over the book now button longer than I should have. Was she too busy? Would she feel overwhelmed? Or would she smile the way I was hoping, that soft, genuine smile that started in her eyes and made her look younger than any number ever could? A memory surfaced, her voice months ago, quiet in the dark. "I never thought I'd have this again," she had whispered, tracing circles on my arm. A real family. That was the woman I loved. Not the executive in heels commanding conference rooms. Not the composed professional shaking hands under bright lights. Just her. I booked the tickets. The confirmation email felt like a promise. The next day, I packed small overnight bags while the kids decorated handmade cards. One drew stick figures of the 4 of us holding hands. The other wrote, in big uneven letters, "We miss you, Mommy." I paused when I folded one of her sweaters into my bag, not because she needed it, but because it still smelled like her. Soft. Familiar. Safe. I pressed the fabric briefly to my face, then laughed at myself. What was I really hoping to find? Proof that she still looked at me the same way. Proof that the hesitation I felt in her voice wasn't growing into something else. I zipped the suitcase closed and stood there in the quiet room. This wasn't about suspicion. It was about reassurance. About showing up. About reminding her, and maybe reminding myself, that what we had wasn't fragile. The kids cheered when I told them we were leaving in the morning. And as I turned off the lights that night, I allowed myself to picture it, her walking into the hotel lobby. Seeing us. Her hand flying to her mouth in surprise. Her arms wrapping around me tightly, not polite, not distant. Tightly. I fell asleep holding that image like a shield against the doubt I refused to name. The hotel lobby smelled like polished marble and fresh coffee. It was brighter than I expected, sunlight pouring in through tall glass windows, reflecting off the floors so clean they almost looked wet. The kids pressed close to me, their small hands gripping mine, bouncing slightly with excitement. "Do you see her?" my son whispered. "Not yet," I said, scanning the room. My heart was beating faster than it should have been. I told myself it was anticipation. That's all this was. Then I saw her. She was standing near the lounge area, just past a row of tall indoor plants. Her back was to us at first, posture straight, one hand resting lightly on the edge of a high table. She wore a cream blouse tucked into a fitted skirt, her heels making her look even more poised. Her hair fell smoothly down her back. She looked radiant. Confident. Alive in a way that made me pause. And then I noticed she wasn't alone. A man stood across from her. Mid-40s maybe. Well-dressed. Close enough that their shoulders nearly brushed. He leaned in slightly as he spoke, and she tilted her head toward him to listen. Then she laughed. It wasn't loud. It wasn't inappropriate. But it was soft and warm, the kind of laugh she used to give me when I'd tease her in the kitchen. Her fingers brushed his forearm briefly as she responded to something he said. It could have meant nothing. It probably meant nothing. But the air in my lungs thinned anyway. I felt the kids tug at my hands. "Daddy, that's Mom." And before I could prepare myself, before I could decide what expression to wear, they were running toward her. "Mom." She turned at the sound. For a split second, confusion crossed her face. Then recognition. And then, something else. Her smile froze. Not disappeared. Just stalled. Her eyes flickered from the kids to me, then quickly back to the man beside her. He stepped back instinctively, creating space. She recovered fast. Too fast. "Oh my God," she exclaimed, kneeling as the kids collided into her arms. She hugged them tightly, almost desperately, pressing her cheek against their hair. I walked toward them slowly. My pulse thudded in my ears. She stood up with the kids still clinging to her, smoothing her hair with one hand. "What are you doing here?" she asked, breathless. "Surprise," I said softly. The man beside her cleared his throat politely. She glanced at him, then back at me. "This is Daniel," she said quickly. "He's part of the project team." Daniel extended his hand. "Nice to finally meet you." Finally. The word echoed louder than it should have. I shook his hand. His grip was firm, professional. Neutral. "Nice to meet you," I replied. My wife stepped slightly closer to me then, subtle, but noticeable. Close enough that her arm brushed mine. As if to correct the distance. Or hide it. The kids were talking over each other now, telling her about the cake, the cards, the plane ride. She smiled, nodded, laughed in the right places. But her eyes kept darting to me. Measuring. Searching. Was it guilt? Was it shock? Or was I projecting my own fear onto her expression? Daniel excused himself smoothly, offering a polite goodbye. She watched him walk away for half a second too long before turning fully back to us. "I can't believe you did this," she said, forcing brightness into her tone. But when her hand slipped into mine, just briefly, her fingers felt cooler than usual. And her grip wasn't steady. In that crowded, sunlit lobby, surrounded by the hum of conversation and rolling suitcases, I realized something had shifted. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just enough to make my chest ache. Because surprises are supposed to bring joy. Not questions. The excitement carried us through the evening. She checked us into a larger room. Ordered room service. Laughed at the kids' stories like nothing in the world was wrong. If anyone had walked past our table in the restaurant downstairs, they would have seen a happy family reunited. And maybe we were. But something underneath it all felt fragile, like glass set too close to the edge of a table. Later that night, after baths and cartoons and too many bites of lemon cake, the kids finally fell asleep in the second bed. Their breathing softened the room, steady and innocent. The lights were dim. City noise filtered in faintly through the window. She stood near the dresser, removing her earrings slowly, placing them carefully into a small velvet pouch. I sat on the edge of the bed, elbows resting on my knees, watching her reflection in the mirror. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't angry. It was heavy. "You seemed surprised," I said gently. She paused, her fingers stilling against the edge of the dresser. "I was," she replied, keeping her back to me. I nodded slowly. "Not in a good way." She closed her eyes briefly, I could see it in the mirror. Then she turned around. "I just wasn't expecting it," she said. "You could have told me. I wanted to see your real reaction." The words came out softer than I meant them to, but they landed. Her shoulders dropped slightly. She crossed the room and sat beside me on the edge of the bed. Close enough that our thighs touched. Not close enough to feel connected. "I didn't tell you about Daniel," she said after a long breath. I didn't interrupt. "He's been helping with negotiations. We've had a lot of meetings. And dinners. I asked carefully. Her jaw tightened, just a little. Yes. Work dinners. The room felt smaller. I'm not accusing you, I said quickly. And I meant it. I wasn't here to fight. I just needed to understand the space that had grown between us. She looked down at her hands, twisting her wedding ring slowly around her finger. I didn't mention him because, she hesitated. Because I knew how it might sound. Why would it sound like anything? Her eyes lifted to mine then, vulnerable, almost tired. Because he flirts, she admitted quietly. The honesty hit me harder than denial would have. And? She swallowed. And I didn't shut it down immediately. The air shifted. Not explosive. Not dramatic. Just real. I stared at the carpet for a moment, absorbing that. Did you want him to? I asked. Her breath caught. No, she said firmly. I wanted to feel noticed. That wasn't the answer I expected. She reached for my hand then, slowly, cautiously, like she wasn't sure if I'd pull away. I didn't. Her fingers were warm this time. Slightly trembling. I'd been feeling, she struggled for the word. Older. I blinked. You're not, I know what I am, she said gently, not defensive. Just honest. I walk into rooms full of younger women. Confident men. And sometimes I wonder if you'll wake up one day and realize you deserve someone less complicated. The confession cracked something open inside me. I shifted closer instinctively, our knees fully touching now. I don't look at you and see older, I said quietly. I see you. Her eyes softened. I never cheated, she whispered. But I liked feeling wanted. The words hung between us. Not betrayal in action. But distance in emotion. And maybe that was just as dangerous. She squeezed my hand slightly, waiting. Not for anger. For truth. Her words stayed between us long after she said them. I liked feeling wanted. It wasn't an affair. It wasn't a secret hotel room or whispered promises in the dark. It was something quieter. And somehow, that made it more complicated. I let out a slow breath, staring at our joined hands. Her fingers were still wrapped around mine, but gently, like she was prepared for me to let go. Why didn't you tell me you were feeling that way? I asked. She gave a small, almost embarrassed smile. Because it sounds ridiculous. It doesn't. She looked at me then, really looked at me, searching for judgment. I'm in my 40s, she said softly. I've built a career. I've been through a divorce. I'm supposed to be secure by now. Not, craving validation like I'm 25. I shifted closer without thinking. Our shoulders brushed. Warmth passed between us, subtle but grounding. You're human, I said. Her composure faltered at that. I walk into meetings, she continued, voice quieter now, and I'm confident. I know what I'm doing. But then someone like him pays attention, not just professionally, and for a second, I feel visible. Her thumb traced a small line across my knuckles absent-mindedly. I never intended for it to go anywhere, she added quickly. It didn't. But you didn't stop it either, I said gently. She shook her head. No. I didn't. The honesty hurt, but it also steadied me. At least we were standing in truth now. I leaned back slightly, trying to sort through the tightness in my chest. I think the part that scares me, I admitted slowly, is that I didn't know you felt invisible with me. Her expression changed instantly. You don't make me feel invisible. Then why did someone else's attention matter so much? She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Silence filled the room, thick but not hostile. Finally, she reached up and cupped my face. Her hands were warm against my jaw, thumbs resting just below my cheekbones. The touch was familiar. Intimate. Not desperate, just steady. I don't doubt your love, she said. I doubt myself. That landed deeper than anything else she'd said. You're younger, she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. You still have so much ahead of you. Sometimes I worry that one day you'll look at me and realize you chose someone already halfway through her story. I let out a soft, almost incredulous breath. You think I don't feel insecure too? Her brows knit slightly. I walk into your world sometimes and feel like I'm still catching up, I confessed. You speak in strategies and forecasts. You command rooms. I'm proud of you, but sometimes I wonder if I'm enough in that world. Her hand softened against my face. You are my world, she said. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was simple. She leaned forward then, resting her forehead against mine. Our noses brushed lightly. I could feel her breath, slow and steady. I never touched him the way I'm touching you, she whispered. I never wanted to. I closed my eyes. The betrayal wasn't physical. It wasn't about another man's hand on her waist. It was about the quiet space that had opened between us, the fears we hadn't spoken. I don't want admiration from strangers, she murmured. I want us. Her fingers slid from my jaw to the back of my neck, holding me there gently. And for the first time since the lobby, I didn't feel replaced. I felt chosen. Not because temptation didn't exist, but because she was finally being honest about why it almost mattered. We stayed like that for a long time. Forehead to forehead. Breathing the same air. Letting the noise inside both of us settle. The city lights outside flickered through the curtains, casting soft shadows across her face. Up close, I could see the faint lines near her eyes, the ones that appeared when she laughed too hard. I reached up without thinking and traced one gently with my thumb. I love these, I said quietly. She gave a small, emotional laugh. You're impossible. No, I murmured. I'm serious. My thumb lingered against her cheek a second longer than necessary. Her skin was warm. Familiar. Real. She slid her arms slowly around my waist then, not urgently, not as an apology, but as something steadier. Her embrace tightened gradually, like she was grounding herself. I pulled her closer in return. Her cheek rested against my shoulder. I felt her exhale against my collarbone, long and shaky at first, then calmer. I don't want to lose this, she whispered. You're not, I said. But I understood what she meant. Not losing the marriage. Losing the closeness. Losing the feeling of being each other's safest place. I pressed a kiss gently into her hair. Not dramatic. Just there. We can't fix what we don't talk about, I added softly. She nodded against me. I should have told you sooner, she admitted. About him. About how I was feeling. And I should have told you I felt you pulling away, I said. She leaned back just enough to look at me. Why didn't you? I smiled faintly. Because I didn't want to seem insecure. Her expression softened immediately. One of her hands slid up to cup my cheek again, thumb brushing lightly just below my eye. You're allowed to be insecure, she said gently. You're allowed to need reassurance. The way she said it, without judgment, without condescension, made something unclench in my chest. I think I forgot that, I admitted. She shifted slightly so we were sitting fully facing each other now, knees touching. Her hands rested on my thighs, steady and intentional. I don't want admiration from someone else, she said firmly. If I ever feel unseen, I need to tell you. Not look for it somewhere else. And if I feel like I'm losing you, I replied, I won't just stay quiet and hope it fixes itself. A small smile curved her lips. Deal. Deal. She extended her pinky playfully, something she used to do when we first started dating. It caught me off guard in the best way. I hooked mine with hers. For a moment, we both laughed softly at how simple it felt. Then she leaned forward and pressed a gentle kiss to my cheek. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't desperate. It lingered. Her lips were warm against my skin, and when she pulled back, she didn't move far. Our noses brushed lightly. Our eyes held. "I choose you," she said. Not dramatically. Not tearfully. Just truthfully. I felt it then, not the absence of doubt, but the presence of intention. I slid my hands around her waist again, drawing her into another slow embrace. This time it felt different. Not fragile. Not uncertain. Grounded. Her fingers pressed lightly into my back as if anchoring herself there. As if reminding both of us where she belonged. Outside, the city continued humming. Inside, the space between us closed completely. We weren't perfect. We were honest. And for the first time since she left home, I didn't feel like I was standing outside her world. I felt like I was right where I was supposed to be, in her arms, choosing her back. Morning light spilled softly through the hotel curtains, warm and golden. I woke before everyone else. She was still asleep beside me, turned slightly toward my side of the bed. One of her hands rested loosely near my chest, fingers barely touching the fabric of my shirt. Even in sleep, she stayed close. For a moment, I just watched her. Without the blazer. Without the heels. Without the confidence she wore like armor in boardrooms. Just her. There was something peaceful about her face when she wasn't trying to hold everything together. A few minutes later, the kids stirred in the other bed, whispering and giggling. She blinked awake slowly, adjusting to the light, and when her eyes found mine, she smiled. Not the polished smile. The real one. "Good morning," she murmured, her voice still thick with sleep. "Morning," I replied. She shifted closer without hesitation, resting her forehead lightly against my shoulder for a second before sitting up. The movement was natural. Easy. No tension left in it. We had breakfast downstairs together. The kids insisted on sitting between us, showing her the cards again, retelling the entire surprise mission like it was a secret operation. She laughed freely this time, not distracted, not scanning the room. Under the table, her hand found mine. Her fingers laced through mine firmly. Not hidden. Just steady. Halfway through breakfast, I noticed Daniel walking through the lobby. For a split second, my chest tightened. She noticed him too. But instead of shifting away or stiffening, she squeezed my hand and stood up. "Daniel," she called politely. He approached with a professional smile. "I didn't properly introduce you yesterday," she said calmly. "This is my husband." There was pride in her voice. Clear. Unmistakable. I stood beside her, our shoulders brushing. Daniel extended his hand again. "Nice to meet you." This time, there was no echo in the word finally. Just neutral courtesy. After he left, she didn't look back. Instead, she leaned slightly into me, subtle, but intentional. That small gesture said more than any explanation ever could. Later that afternoon, we headed home. The kids fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from excitement. She sat in the passenger seat, one hand resting lightly on my arm as I drove. "I'm glad you came," she said quietly. "I needed to," I admitted. She turned toward me fully then, her fingers tracing a slow line down my sleeve. "I don't want you ever wondering where you stand with me," she said. I glanced at her briefly before returning my eyes to the road. "Then keep choosing me," I replied. She smiled softly. "I will." When we walked back into our house that evening, it felt different. Warmer. The lemon cake was set on the kitchen counter where we'd left it. She laughed when she saw the uneven frosting, touching it gently like it was something precious. "You did all this for me," she said. "For us," I corrected. While the kids argued about who got the biggest slice, she stepped beside me at the sink to help wash plates. Our hips brushed lightly. Familiar. Comfortable. She leaned her head briefly against my shoulder. Not because she had to. Because she wanted to. And standing there in our kitchen, flour still dusted on the counter, children laughing in the next room, I understood something clearly. Temptation can happen. Insecurity can whisper. Distance can grow quietly. But love isn't proven by the absence of those things. It's proven in moments like this. In choosing each other, again and again, even after doubt tries to creep in. She didn't expect the surprise. But the real surprise was this: we came back stronger. Not because nothing happened. But because we faced it, together. Ending, together and secure.